Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. My goal is to be unbiased and transparent. It's a privilege to serve you. This is not an endorsement. Let's get into it. Hey guys, we are in Fullerton, California. I'm here with Sam from the Electric Bicycle Center just up the street.
Yep, around the corner.
And we are looking at a new one from Raleigh. It's actually not the newest name. This is the Raleigh Misceo IE 2019 model we're looking at here, but the bike's been upgraded in some major ways, and it could look familiar. If you're familiar with Raleigh, they have kind of a sister company, iZip. They're all owned by the Excel Group, and iZip has the E3 Brio, which uses the same drivetrain, same battery design, but there are a few important upgrades, namely the hydraulic disc brakes up here, the drivetrain. It's an 8-speed, and it's got a Shimano Altus derailleur with 11 to 34 tooth, so it's a nice little upgrade there in terms of the gear range. And then this awesome LCD display panel versus LED. It's $100 more than the iZip model. This comes in at $17.99. For $100, you get a lot of upgrades, and they sell this through shops like Sam's just down the street. So you carry several of these brands, right? Or what's the deal, Sam?
Yeah. Most all the brands from the Excel Group we have on our showroom floor. And this is a model that is pretty much all-inclusive with everything that comes with lights, fenders, rear rack.
Yeah.
And in that price point, there's a lot of competition. So there's a lot of bikes to look at the price point, and that's just one in the lineup to consider.
You know, you make a great point here. The fact that it's got these plastic fenders, pretty good support designs up here, and then this rear rack, rear fender with a mud flap. And one thing that I really like about this rack is that not only does it support up to 25 kilograms, roughly 55 pounds, that's kind of the higher end of standard. So there are a lot of racks out there that they're only 15 kilograms. So 25, that's awesome. And see how it actually attaches to the fender and links back to the seat stays? That is a nicer design. And if you didn't want to use this rack for some reason, they've even got bosses right here. You can add your own aftermarket. And they have bottle cage bosses down here. I love that. This bike comes in 3 frame sizes. It comes with a suspension fork. This is roughly 75 millimeters of travel according to the website. It's a spring fork. You know, it's not quite as adjustable as a lightweight air fork, but for kind of an urban commuter platform and a value price range, this is nice because it's got lockout. I have it completely open right now to absorb some of those bumps when we're riding, but you could lock that out and it would reduce bob and it would be a little bit more efficient. There's preload as well, so you can preload that spring if you're someone who's a bit larger or maybe you're carrying a lot of weight in the back. And then these tires, these are Kenda tires. They don't have fancy like reflective sidewall stripes or puncture protection, but the size here, 700 by 450, that's like 28 by 1.75. It's a pretty good balance, kind of a hybrid tire design here. So you're getting efficiency, but a little bit wider than a road bike to provide some comfort. And the 700C or 28-inch diameter, that creates a lower attack angle, so you span cracks and bumps, and they don't create as much like shake and jar when you're riding this bike. So the suspension fork, nice ergonomic grips, pretty decent saddle here. It is a hardtail design, and it's a rigid seat post, 31.6 millimeters. You could, actually, is it 31.8? Is that the standard, Sam? I think
31.6 and 27.2 are the most common seat posts on bikes.
Okay, I might be getting my numbers just a little bit backwards here. I've got all the documentation back at the website, and I want to point out that, you know, I was studying the Raleigh website, and a few things on their website weren't quite up to date. So everything we're talking about, and that's on EBR, it relates to this exact frame. And this happens to be the size large frame. I mentioned that there are 2 other sizes. As Sam mentioned, they do have integrated lights, and this is kind of unbranded up front. I think this is Fushan. And then same thing in the rear. I like how it's tucked in. It's gonna sit below a trunk bag or panniers. This is standard gauge tubing, so you could either use a bungee cord or you could put panniers and really load this thing up and get to work or maybe commute to school or something. I like the kickstand position. It stays really clear of that left crank arm. It's not gonna create pedal lock if you're backing out. And they've even got this nice neoprene slap guard down here. And I guess a slap guard would technically be on this side, but it's kind of a cable wrap and it just cleans things up. They do have a clear sticker slap guard on this side, so if the chain's bouncing around, it's not gonna nick up the nice paint. This comes in a high step like you see here with a nice stepped in battery. So it kind of lowers the weight and creates a nice look. But they have a kind of a mid-step or step-through design as well for people who might not be quite as tall. And that one comes in a couple different colors. So there's a lot of choice here between size and color and everything. And this drivetrain is really nice. This is SR Suntour, 250 to 400 watt planetary geared hub motor in the rear, but it's a little bit nicer than some of the other hub motors that we see where it's only a cadence sensor. This one actually has like a torque and cadence sensor built into the bottom bracket, and then this nice plastic guide so that chain isn't going to bounce off. It's not going to nick up your frame. The motor's going to be a little bit more responsive. There's no throttle on this bike. It's class 1 up to 20 miles per hour, and Raleigh does have a number of other bikes, which you see over here. This is kind of an upgrade. And this one's a speed pedelec, so if you wanted to go faster, you could get the Cadet IE, but it's a mid-drive. Things kind of change up, and the price jumps up a bit as well. Same thing, nice LCD display, a little bit fancier on some of the components. The lights mounted up kind of on the handlebars. It's going to be a bit more visible. It's even got some side windows versus down on the suspension fork. And so what that means is the lower portion of the fork can travel up and down when you go over bumps, and that light ends up being a little bit more shaky instead of up high and stable. You've got your flick bell. You've got those hydraulic disc brakes that I talked about, including 180 millimeter rotors. That's a nice big size. Standard dual piston calipers, you know, these plastic pedals with rubber kind of a tread so you won't slip off. But if you do, you're not going to get scraped up quite as much as if you were using mountain bike metal pedals. You can see that's kind of happened to my shins here. And then just the weight distribution of the bike. Nice to have a battery that's low in center like this. Really resembles the Bosch Power Pack battery, in my opinion. You know, it's a plastic casing. It's got a little LED charge level indicator, 4 dots, so each dot represents 25% capacity. The thing about this battery is that you know, you could take it off the bike to reduce weight. Maybe you're hanging this on the back of your car, or maybe you have to park this outside. Coming back to that student or commuter application, it's a warm day today. It's beautiful here in California, and the heat and extreme cold can actually be a bit tough on those lithium ion cells. This is a 36 volt, 11.6 amp hour pack. So, you know, it's kind of medium in terms of capacity, but it's very lightweight, 5.6 pounds. The whole bike is 55.1 pounds, according to our measurements with everything you see here. Okay, so Sam, I was actually, we don't need to do it. We've got the keys right here. If you insert and you turn, the battery, it kind of slides up like this. At first I was pulling on it, I was trying to slide side to side, but it actually slides up. And that was a little bit confusing for me at first, because it wasn't as intuitive, and it took some kind of, it was a little bit more awkward than some of the other batteries I've tried. And you'll notice that the charging port is technically clear of that crank arm, but it's a little bit lower. You have to bend over and kind of pull up this rubber cover here, and then see how small that port is. And there's like 3 pins, but there isn't like an alignment. It's not keyed the way that some others are. And I'm even kind of having trouble getting that rubber protector like lined up. This is one of the more expensive parts of the bike, one of the more delicate parts. So for me, the fact that it's difficult to remove, yeah, you've got a bit of a grip portion here, but it doesn't have like a fully open handle the way that a Bosch battery does, and it doesn't click out. It slides up, and I could see myself like dropping it, and that would be such a bummer. This is the charger over here. It's very compact, it's lightweight. This thing puts out 2 amps, so it's very standard. But look at that tiny plug. I mean, it's super small, and those 3 pins, if you get them twisted around, you could bend those, and then it'd just be kind of hard to get that fixed. What do you have any thoughts on this, Sam?
So I think here's how I look at it. We're so used to a certain style of battery when we're pulling it out. We're used to that.
Yeah.
For somebody that's bought this and they're not familiar with the way a Yamaha battery pulls out or a Bosch battery pulls out, it might be okay for them. It's just a matter of getting used to how you pull that out. And then as far as the battery charger goes, that was my only critique, that was a little bit, this reminds me a lot of like the connections on certain electric bikes where you're connecting your brake inhibitors or maybe your display
up here.
Up front. I also want to address the SR Suntour motor on it and the components on this bike. They're good. I haven't had any problems, and I've sold bikes with the SR Suntour in the past, and I've never had an issue with those motors or the components from them as well. I think Raleigh did a really good job of picking the components and bringing the bike in at a certain price point.
Yeah.
The bottom line is you're going to pay for what you get. And you know, the person that was making decisions for Raleigh, I think they did a good job with the hydraulic brakes, you know, lighting, all the things you were mentioning. good job.
You know, and that's another good point, is they sell these through dealers. So people like Sam, he has to get this bike, stock it, sell it, support it. So there's a dealer margin there that some of the cheaper bikes that are direct online, you have to build it yourself, and you might not have as good of support. Raleigh's been around forever as a bicycle company, and now they're part of the Excel group that has like the Electric Bicycle Competency Center and all kinds of support. They even have VeloFix. So if you're someone who doesn't live near a shop, they'll work with an electric, well, it's any type of bike, but these days it seems mostly electric. They're kind of like a mobile bike repair service, and they'll open it up and they'll get you fitted and stuff, which is pretty cool.
Mention Beeline as well. You know, they're part of that organization, and you can buy the bike online, and through Beeline you're going to get service done as well.
It's a neat, you know, the world's kind of changing, and there's a lot of new options as e-bikes become more popular. It's cool that the Excel group does a little bit of both, and I always enjoy coming to the dealers to get these close looks and guide you guys through this. There's no quick release in the rear. It's like a 10 millimeter threaded axle with 15 millimeter nuts. Up front, we do have a 9 millimeter standard quick release skewer. And for me, that's kind of nice if you do need to change a flat or something. Just be careful. Keep an eye on the tire pressure so you don't get a pinch flat, and watch where you ride, because these tires just aren't quite as high quality as some of the fancier bikes with the reflectors and the puncture protection. This is a longer stem. It's about 100 millimeters, and that's probably because this is a large size frame. But the ride on this is more decidedly like forward. It's kind of an active bike, sort of a commuter. Got that nice window on the shifters, one way on the high lever, so you have to pull back. You can't pull and push, but there is multi-shift on the low gear lever, so I appreciate that. We got the flick bell. The display is removable, so just like I was talking about the battery, you can take this off, and that way your bike's not going to get worn out as quickly in the sun or maybe vandalized. You might almost want to take this all the time. I don't see like a locking screw, and someone could take this and then you'd kind of be out of luck. There are times where if you're coming to the bike and you haven't ridden it for a while, you'll be pressing that power button and it won't turn on. You actually have to sort of wake up the battery by pressing that if it's been more than an hour. Was that right, Sam?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Good point.
So after just an hour isn't that long. So almost every time you come out, at least it's on top of the battery. You kind of reach down if you forgot before you mount the bike. Press the power button here. Comes to life. It's a monochrome grayscale, adjustable angle, removable display. Very nice. There's no USB charging ports or anything, but again, the battery capacity, it's kind of modest. This is a medium-sized battery, so that's fine. We've got a 4-bar battery infographic, which to me was super disappointing because that's like 25% steps, just like on the battery, and that's just not very precise. But if you press the I button here, we have battery percentage. So great job, SR Suntour. I really appreciate the percentage, much more precise. We've got a light indicator, and there is a light button here, so if we tap that, it turns on and off like the headlight, and you'll notice that it's actually kind of cut down, so it's designed not to blind like oncoming traffic. That it is a nicer light, even though these are sort of generic Fushan branding. One LED in the rear, got current speed in the middle, and then the different levels of assist. It seems like it booted up in Tour. I don't know if that's always the case. I was going to take it down to Eco and then maybe power cycle it real quick just to see what happens. And it goes back to Tour. So yeah, I think that's always where it starts. That means that the bike is going to respond to your pedaling and give you some extra help. Because it's like a torque activated sensor, personally I think it's like an advanced sensor. It's measuring multiple things, but it's pretty torque heavy. So there are moments where I'm pushing down and I'm really feeling like almost like and versus like a really smooth while ever you're pedaling. Each drivetrain is a little bit different. It's worth checking out if you can, and that's another benefit of going to a shop. So we can go all the way up to Sport, all the way down to No, which would be like no assist, but then you still get your speedometer, you get the lights and everything, which is pretty cool. Climb, if we go up to this one, that would actually get highlighted and then flash if you're starting to overheat the motor or the motor controller in this case. It's good to take a, kind of take a break for a second so you don't overwork the bike if you see that. That was interesting. We were looking in the manual earlier. If we press the I button, it cycles through to total distance, trip distance, and back to battery percentage. So there's a lot of good stuff here, including walk mode, which is nice if you get a flat tire, you got to push this through a park or something and you don't feel comfortable riding the bike. There's a lot of good stuff here. Sam, do you remember how you changed from miles per hour to kilometers per hour?
Yeah, you put it either on trip or odometer and then hold the middle button, right? Yeah, the I button for 5 seconds and it'll switch. Got to do the full 5-second hold, and
there we go.
That's
Okay, it took us a while to figure that out, you guys, and I didn't find any other like settings menus or anything. In a way, this display kind of has everything I appreciate and look for, specifically the battery percentage, and it's intuitive. It's easy to reach. The bike rides pretty well. You know, the suspension fork feels good. The multiple sizes, the internally routed cables keeps it looking nice. I was pointing to this earlier, but here's like the controller, the motor controller that you'd want to kind of pause if the bike started to overheat. I don't think this bike has a problem with that. I think other bikes probably could encounter the same situation. It's just neat that this one has like an alert, because most bikes don't. Okay guys, I'm getting ready to do that ride test. I am in sport. I like to do my ride tests in the highest level of assist so you can hear the motor. It's maybe a little bit more pronounced and you can see it responding. Since you're not here, you just got the camera. I'm gonna cruise around and then I'm gonna put the camera on the frame so you'll get another perspective. Okay guys, from here you can see the 42 tooth chainring and kind of I guess it's a little bit, almost seems like bent out of position a little bit here, the chain cover, chain guard, but it's not making any noise. And again, that has a guide, so there's plastic piece on either side of the chain ring. The chain's not gonna drop off, which is really nice. I'm actually gonna go over some bumpy stuff so you can hear the fenders and just listen for any other sounds this bike might make. Really love that they went with Shimano Altus here instead of Tourney. That's one step up in the group set line from Shimano, and then 11 to 34 teeth back here versus 14 to 28. So you get going to be more comfortable at the high speeds, going to be able to climb easier. That's really what that means. It's just like a wider range. 8 gears, easy to shift through. I'm going to pedal along. The video might have cut out a second ago because I was riding and battery was running out on my other camera. And what I was saying is that the bike feels really stable, and you notice when you push, like I can pedal along even in the highest assist level, and if I'm not pedaling with a little bit of torque, which means maybe I shift to a lower gear, the motor doesn't kick in. And in a way that's really smooth. It gives you a sense of control, but it's also a more active bike. It requires a little bit more input and energy, and gives you a little bit more of a workout compared to a cadence sensor, which just detects pedal movement, not pedal torque. So keep that in mind. I'm gonna hop on and let's do it. I'm still up in sport mode, which is the highest level of assist. And I think this motor gives up to like 60 Newton meters of torque is what they say. It does feel pretty zippy, but hub motors compared to like a mid-drive, maybe not quite as efficient, so your range isn't gonna be quite as good. And you do need the chain and everything intact, because if you lose that, there's no throttle, there's no other way to ride this thing. So here we go. Okay, so you might have heard, I actually pedaled beyond 20 miles per hour, above 32 kilometers per hour, and it cut out. The motor just stops at that point because it is class 1, and that's the top assisted speed. Also, when I was going across the grass, you could hear the chain bumping into the metal chain guard, chain cover, and that made a little bit of noise, but I didn't hear the fenders. They're going to be lighter and more resilient than like aluminum or steel. Steel can rust. I feel like these are well done. It's a pretty nice bike all around in terms of ride quality. Well guys, I think that's about it. It's been tons of fun hanging out with you, Sam. Thank you again for bringing a couple of these models and sharing your expertise, your experience with this company.
Sure.
Been around for a long time, and yeah, I agree with you. I feel like the Misceo IE, it not only has it been improved since prior year models, but it still offers great value and are really functional, you know, with the fenders, the lights, the rack. Even got a chain cover right here. This is like aluminum alloy. Going to keep you clean on your way to work. It's good stuff.
Mention something?
Yeah.
You know, Raleigh has a dealer network that's nationwide. And the thing I want to tell and shout out to all the dealers out there that are carrying the brand, support your local shop. Go check them out. Go give it a test ride. Yeah, it's huge. It really does make a difference. Some people might love that like kind of torque
active feeling. Other people might feel like, you know, I want a throttle or something like that. So a lot of shops will offer a couple choices for any of those. The full written review is back at ElectricBikeReview.com. As always, I appreciate your feedback in the comments or corrections if you notice anything. I love you guys. Ride safe. We'll see you next time.